All right. Hello, everybody. I hope you all are doing well. This is DFS Army's tournament strategy show. For those of you that don't know, we will look back at last night's slate, then we'll look at today's slate, and we'll just game plan, theorize a little bit. Who do we like? Who don't we like? And go from there. And then, of course, pre-lock show later today for VIP members only. Link in the description. But for to use a promo code BOB if you want a 10% discount for that. But anyway, let's look at the slate. So most of you guys know, I had a work event yesterday, so I did not play NBA DFS, unfortunately. So I missed out on the fun, maybe. I don't know. This was the $100,000 winning lineup yesterday. Extremely low scoring slate. 300 is rarely ever a winning tournament lineup. Let's just look at it. We see Killian Hayes. He made the nuts line. Makes sense. Cade was out yesterday. You know, he didn't do anything that special, but that's what you kind of expect from Hayes. He was relatively cheap. Makes sense. Jaden Ivey really took advantage of his increasing usage. Logical. Bogdanovich did well too. Going up against Sacramento, all these make sense. So I'm not completely surprised by that. Something that did surprise me, though, Keegan Murray had one of his intense games. Once again, though, I know Fox struggled yesterday. There's a clear correlation here. When Fox is out and or struggling, Keegan Murray is usually doing more of the heavy lifting if the Kings are winning. And then most of the time, Fox is doing well and playing well, and Keegan Murray is usually invisible. So Keegan Murray did well, but that's not really anything to pay too much attention to. And I think Sabonis made a ton of sense yesterday as well. We like playing bigs against this Detroit team. We've been doing that for weeks now. And so Sabonis made a ton of sense as well. So glad, or hopefully everyone was able to get to him. Mike Conley was a bit of a surprise. I didn't look too closely at what happened there, but it looks like he got it going. Caleb did decent. He made the nuts line, but he didn't do anything crazy. Similar story of Goga. Seems like it was just a low-scoring night. If I had to guess, probably a lot of people were burned by more chalky plays. But again, I didn't really look too closely at the slate. Let's get it for today's slate, though. Bobby, what's up? Yeah, I missed being here too yesterday. Glad that we are back. Dave, always appreciate you, man. If you all could hit the like, share, and subscribe button, or just one of those, that would be awesome. Appreciate the support per usual. Thomas Dye, good to see you. Doogie, hope you're doing well. Aren't you full-time at DFS Army? If only. No, Grayson, I'm not. I am not. Let's see. All right, let's look at today's slate. And it's an interesting one. I think there's some interesting spots we'll get to. Starting off, we have this game with the Timberwolves going up against the Celtics. These are two really good defensive teams. So typically, I'm not trying to go out of my way to play these guys. There's some news that we're waiting on that could make some of the Timberwolves more viable. I think we know Anthony Edwards is always a decent GPP play if you want to play him, but he's not standing out for me currently. The Celtics have some injury news. They have some questionables. And so if we get Porzingis and Horford out, that would make Karl Anthony Towns and maybe Rudy Gobert much more viable for me. But as of right now, I'm not looking at the Timberwolves tonight. Hey, Mike, Mike Conley did well last night, but I'm not trying to chase that, especially going up against the Celtics here. Now, the Celtics have the Q tags. Porzingis is questionable. Drew Holiday, questionable. Al Horford, questionable. This is the front end of a back-to-back for them, so it wouldn't be super surprising. Usually, one of Porzingis or Horford miss one of these games. So I'm expecting at least one of them to be out. If both of them are out, that's when we get a little bit more excited about playing guys like Derek White. With Holiday, questionable as well. I think Derek White could be a very, very strong play on this slate, just depending on how news breaks. If everyone plays minus just one of Porzingis or Horford, it doesn't really move the needle for me too much. Tatum and Brown, I'm not overly excited about unless Porzingis, Holiday both missed. So yeah, first game, relatively boring unless we get some more interesting injury news. Bill, what's up, man? Dixon, glad you're here too. Rick said, took down second in the mini max day before yesterday with your picks. Thanks for the content. Yeah, no, thanks, man. Glad that went well. Yeah, Monday was a pretty good slate. We hit on the chat, low owned play. There might have been some other ones. My memory is not great, guys. I think you guys know that. Louise, what's up, man? SM, shake my head. Might be a damn pool party tonight. Uh-oh. Oh, Horford is playing. Did we get that news? I haven't seen that quite yet, but that clears things. That means Porzingis might be out, which would be a little bit more exciting. Oh, Dixon, don't. I know. I've started to see that a little bit too. I don't even want to talk about him. I am so over Draymond and the Warriors in general. So yeah, if Horford plays, that doesn't matter too much for me. What really matters is Porzingis and Holiday. But with Horford playing, it does make it pretty easy for me just to kind of fade the Timberwolves. But again, I haven't seen that yet, so we'll see once it's verified or once I have a chance to look at the news again. Let's see here. Next up, we have the Wizards going up against the Pacers. You know, this is a good game, and I always talk about targeting the game with the highest game total on the slate. That is exactly what the Wizards and the Pacers are today. They're both in the game with the highest total. I think a lot of the Wizards are viable today. Kuzma, to me, is probably the most obvious play. I'm interested in seeing where his ownership ends up falling. He's one of those guys I'm excited to, not excited. He's one of those guys I expect to have a decent amount of value to. I shouldn't have to force him in because he's projecting pretty well. He's only 7,800. If I had to guess, I would expect him to see decent ownership. So I don't think he's going to be sneaky by any means. But Kuzma's the guy I feel the safest with. Jordan Poole is definitely viable in this spot. Who said it was going to be a pool party day? I don't remember. But it's definitely, I think it was Chris, Coach Chris. It's definitely, he's a viable play at 5,900. He has a really good usage rate. I want to wait and see where ownership falls, because that will really help me decide where I want to fall with it. If Jordan Poole is chalky, like around 20-30% or more, then I would plan on just being around field weight. If he's relatively low owned, then he's someone who could be a potential leverage play for me today. And then, like I'm saying, you see here, I like the highest game total on the slate. I like a decent amount of the Wizards tonight. They're not guys I want to have a ton of leverage on just because we know they can be risky. But I do like Avdia, Tyus Jones. I'm even okay with a little bit of Kispert or Bilal if they show up a little bit as well. They're just a very viable team for me on this slate. I'm not trying to avoid it. Sometimes, and we did this on Monday, we attacked the high total games with the teams who are in better game environments. But this time, both the Wizards and the Pacers are in plus game environments because they both have different strengths and weaknesses when it comes to pace and defense. So I like a lot of these guys. Let's see. Yeah, Doogie, no video yesterday. I had a work event. NBA indefinitely, reality 1 month later. Yeah, that is the way it usually goes. Let's see here. Sweet. Okay, awesome. No worries, man. No worries. So, like I said, I love this game. I love these teams. For the Pacers, things are a little weird. I always say I trust Halliburton. Everyone else is a dart throw. I don't really disagree with that at this point, but because of the game environment, I feel slightly better forcing exposure to some of the Pacers tonight. Let's see. With Halliburton out, we've seen Nimbard kind of take that role, play the one, and really kind of dictate a lot of what happens offensively for this team. The Pacers are a much worse offense without Halliburton. That's obvious. I don't think that surprises anyone. So just don't expect fireworks all the time from this team. But I do like the matchup against the Wizards, so I feel slightly more comfortable having these guys. Nimbard is showing up naturally in my early runs, so I don't have a like on him, but he's still one of the Pacers I feel the safest with at this point at a $5,200 price tag. Miles Turner, I like playing bigs against Washington just in general. Without Halliburton, Turner sees an increase in usage, so he's also a very valuable play for me. And then the guy who sees the highest increase in usage with Halliburton out is actually Bruce Brown. And Bruce Brown in a nice matchup, hoping he won't be that chalky. We'll see. He's someone that I don't want to forget about, and so that's why I have a like on him. Outside of that, Mathurin, Nesmith, I just wanted to try and make sure I had a little bit more exposure to. Again, I just like the game environment. I do feel like a lot of these guys are risky in their dart throws, but I'm willing to take the shot on them. Pacers and Wizards can be gross, but really good game environment for them. Moving on, we have the Kings against the Hornets. So, first of all, decent game total here. 231 is not bad. Spread 7.5 also isn't crazy. This is one of the first slates in a while where we haven't had a double-digit spread, which can definitely change by the time we get to lock. But for now, it makes me feel a little bit safer about some of these guys. Totally fine going right back to Sabonis tonight. Bigs against the Hornets, but also Sabonis is still not super high into the 10K range, so he's more viable for me. For those reasons, I do worry that Sabonis will be a little bit chalky just because he has been in really good form. But if I just take out that, this is still just a really good spot for him. Can't wait to see where ownership falls on Sabonis. And then Fox, you all know me. If someone hurts you the night before, typically you're lower owned. I'm willing to go back there. Going up against Terry or the Hornets, Rozier, isn't the softest matchup in the world. The Hornets do tend to play at a slower pace, but the Kings play at a fast enough pace where hopefully this game can still get going. I want to see where Fox's ownership ends up falling. If he's above 10% ownership, I'm probably not going to try and force it here. But if he's below 10% ownership, I'm looking at him as a potential leverage play just because I like the game environment more than I think most of the field does. This is a revenge game for Malik Monk. So if you care about that, that's fine. But he's not standing out for me too much at his price tag. I know there's some trade rumors happening with the Kings right now. If any of these guys ever end up getting ruled out, like any of the bench guys like Herter or Barnes or whoever you want to mention in a trade rumor, that would be enough for me to want to play Malik Monk tonight. But that's just a really big what if scenario. There's no reason to expect that to happen tonight. All right. For the Hornets, again, this is a bit more of a pace up spot for them going up against the Kings. I like Terry here. He's one of those guys I don't want to forget about. I think Miles Bridges is viable. Decent matchup, good game environment for him. But I'm prioritizing Terry. If Miles Bridges shows up a little bit for me naturally, totally fine with that. Yeah, Phil. They didn't even give us a chance to have a really fun, let's play McConnell night. Instead, they were just like, hey, he's priced up. Now figure out what you want to do. And Thomas, like, I don't hate McConnell. It's just he's priced appropriately. TJ at 6,700. Good matchup, good game environment. I'm not going out of my way to make him not show up. He's showing up around 21% in my early runs, so I have exposure to him currently, but I'm not forcing it. If he falls in ownership for me on the pre-lock show as we continue to make changes, I'm not going to go out of my way to change it. But he is showing up a decent amount for me now. He's just not a focal point for me, if that makes sense. All right. So yeah, Terry, Bridges, other Hornets are viable, but I'm not forcing them in. And by other Hornets, I mean like Brandon Miller. Yeah, that's really it. Just Brandon Miller. You can look at Nick Richards, but I'm not overly excited about that. There's other bigs I like a bit more. For the Spurs going up against the Pistons, I was hoping Victor was going to be super chalk today because, I mean, maybe this just isn't a thing, but there's been a clear correlation that you can play bigs against this Pistons team. I don't think Victor's going to be as chalky as I was hoping he was going to be, unfortunately. But and I think everyone's concern with Victor Wembanyama is really just his lack of minutes. He hasn't played 30 plus minutes in a while. We have seen him still have 50-point upside, not seeing more than 30 minutes, but obviously it's much more risky, much more worrisome. He has to be extremely efficient and stay out of foul trouble for him to really get there. But at low ownership, I'm willing to take the shot on him. And by low ownership, I'm expecting him to be less than 5% owned. And so he'll probably end up being a pre-lock show leverage play for me at that point. But again, if he sees more than 10, 15% ownership on an 8-game slate, I'm not going to try and force him in. But it's really just an ownership argument, just kind of balancing the risk that's involved with him because of the lack of high minutes. Fatal Fam, what's up, man? Hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing well. Let's see. Outside of that, again, pretty soft matchup against the Pistons. Vassell has been in really good form. I think Keldon Johnson's viable as well. Trey Jones too. But none of these guys are guys I'm going to force in. I'm just okay with them showing up in my lines if the optimizer puts them in there. But if Victor stays low owned, he's one of those guys I'm willing to force exposure to. Let's see. Anyone else worth talking about for the Spurs? Not for me. Decent game total here too. Third highest on the slate. So not a spot I'm trying to avoid. For the Pistons, we see a nice increase in price on Killian Hayes. I would expect his ownership to probably not be all that high, but he makes a lot work at his price tag just because we don't have a ton of value. Yeah, wouldn't shock me if he's going to be pretty chalky today. Still, I know some people are looking for reasons to fade Killian Hayes. He is exactly what you saw yesterday. He sees minutes. He's not the highest usage guy. He's not the highest point per minute guy. He just is out there. Sometimes he gets a little bit more aggressive and his shot falls. Most of the time, he's not all that aggressive. So Killian Hayes isn't someone that I'm like, hey, he's going to win you a tournament tonight, but he'll probably be in the winning tournament tonight because he just makes lines work. If we get better value, then I'm totally fine avoiding Hayes. But as of right now, I don't know if we're going to get that. So I think Killian Hayes will probably be in the vast majority of my lines tonight. Jaden Ivey, 6,800 isn't a bad price tag for him, especially going up against the Spurs, a team that I'm not overly concerned about defensively. Hopefully he's not chalky. It wouldn't shock me if he is, though. He is the guy who has been dominating usage-wise, and so he's very viable. And then Jalen Duren, 7,100, good spot against the Spurs. He's also another just really solid play. And then Bogdanovic is more, again, he's just cheap, but I'm not overly excited about him. But I do expect to have a decent amount of exposure to him. So from the Pistons, when it comes to lines, I expect to see Duren. I expect to see Ivy. I expect to see Bogdanovic and Hayes. Outside of that, I don't really love a lot of the guys here. And with that being said, the only guy, if those four guys weren't showing up for me naturally, the only guy I would force exposure to is Duren as of right now. Maybe Ivy. But I expect to be over the field on all of them. Let's see, Dixon. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say it super happy like Pistons stack, but I'll probably have some Piston stacks not planned, but they just make sense today. With no Cade Cunningham. I think most people know that, but just in case you don't. Zolo, what's up, man? Good to see you. Let's see. Any other news we should talk about for those teams? I don't believe so. All right, next up we have the 76ers. This is a team where we could get some interesting plays that shake up the slate a little bit. Joel Embiid is already out. Robert Covington's already out. DeAnthony Melton is questionable. That's a pretty big deal, just in the sense that if he's ruled out, that would make, I mean, obviously Tyrese Maxey's already one of my favorite plays on the slate, but if he's out, that's just even more of a boost in usage. Kelly Oubre would be a bit more viable. He would see the second increase in usage. Tobias Harris would just become much more of a consistent play. Those are really the guys that I'll be the most excited about. Maybe you could consider Beverly, but that wouldn't move the needle too much for me on Beverly. So if Melton's ruled out, I would consider taking a shot on Kelly O, and then it would just make me feel even better about Maxey and Harris. Also, Paul Reed is projecting decently well. Matchup against the Hawks isn't one that concerns me, especially if Clint Capella ends up missing this game. It would make just the matchup slightly easier. Paul Reed, we know if he gets into foul trouble, which he definitely does get into foul trouble a decent bit, then he's not going to have a strong performance. If he's able to see his 28 to 32 minute range, then he becomes a much more viable play. It's just one of those situations where he needs to keep his hands to himself. Then he's good. If he doesn't, then he's bad. Just one of those spots. Let's see here. And that's pretty much it. I love Maxey. He's my favorite play on the slate. We know I like playing guards against Trae Young. That's just what I do, and it usually works out pretty well. And then This is also the second highest game total on the slate. Really close spread with just a 1 point difference. And then there's one more reason. Maxi's also been in better form as of late, too. We've been seeing a little bit more of that 40, 50 point upside. And then in this spot, I'm hoping we can get even more. But that's getting greedy. Hopefully, it's just at least 50 points here. I like this spot for him. And then I expect Tobias Harris to show up in a decent amount of my lines, too. All right. On the other side of the ball, we have the Hawks. Now, the Hawks have Clint Capella listed as questionable. Wesley Matthews is questionable. Hunter's out. Matthews has been out. They've had a few of these guys who've been out for a while now. And when you look at the domination station and you just look at fantasy points over dollar numbers, you just see that Trae Young is projecting well, but really all of the Hawks are projecting pretty well for their price tag. If Clint Capella gets ruled out today, Okongwu becomes the best chalky play on the slate, and I would eat all of that. Have to remember, matchup against the Sixers without Joel Embiid, matchup is a lot easier and safer. Clint Capella, if he plays, he's viable because that matchup is still soft against Paul Reed. So just very viable center plays today. But if Capella plays, he's not someone I'm going to try to force exposure to. He just makes slightly more sense. Trae Young is someone I want to see where ownership falls. I doubt he'll be like a leverage play for me, but I'll probably at least match the field. Murray has been so just not the guy here lately. Let me double check though. Yeah, I just feel like every time I try to take a shot on Murray, it just rarely ever works out. He's great for cash games because he's usually pretty consistent, but he's just been lacking that upside, which is all I typically care about is upside. Don't really care about how consistent you are, but he's really lacking that here lately. Let's see. Would love for him to get traded and go somewhere else, though. Yeah, 33. Yeah. Even in good matchups, he's been disappointing. I can't find a great reason to take a shot on him outside of just a dart throw. Jalen Johnson's a good play today. Very viable. He's an even better play if Clint Capella ends up getting ruled out. And then Bogdanovich and Bey, not overly excited about them, but I'm okay if they show up a little bit for me tonight. Yeah, okay. DeJounte Murray, midday downgrade. Let me see. Why am I behind on this stuff? I use Underdog for pretty much all of my news. There we go. The update. Yeah, he is questionable. Whew. That does spice up the slate even more now. Appreciate that update, guys. Yeah, Murray questionable. That's huge. That is huge. And I think you're right, Power. It does seem like a trade might be on its way. Love that for him. And I love that for us. With the Hawks, when Murray's out, like I said, maybe I didn't say this, but this is a nice boost to Trae Young, nice boost to Jalen Johnson, nice boost to Clint Capella. Let me run it and just kind of see who sees the highest increasing usage. Let's see. Atlanta Hawks. If Clint Capella and Murray miss this game, then we're really talking about playing the Hawks tonight. That would be a game changer. Okay. So obviously Trae Young sees a high increase in usage, 3%. Jalen Johnson sees a 2.6% increase in usage. Patty Mills, 2.4% increase in usage. I don't take that Patty Mills play too seriously, at least not yet. I haven't looked into that enough to know if that makes sense or not. But then Sadiq Bey sees a 1.2% increase in usage, and I expect that to make sense. Sadiq Bey will become much more viable. Jalen Johnson, Trae Young, probably close to core plays. Whew, I like it. Would also want to see who moves into the starting lineup. That would be interesting to see as well. Yeah, we might have a good one on deck today, guys. We might have a good one on deck. Okay, moving on. The games go downhill from here. I like pretty much at least. Okay, I didn't really like anyone from the Timberwolves or Celtics, but I really like the Wizards, Pacers, Kings, Hornets, Spurs, Pistons, Sixers, Hawks. And then the other 4 games are a little bit more bleh for me. We have the Thunder with a not awful spread at 233, or total at 233, 4-point spread. SGA, once again, ideally and most likely he'll be pretty low owned on this slate, so it'll be easy for me to probably get around 5 to 10% exposure to him. Really explosive this season, really great this season. Matchup against the Heat is fine, nowhere near as scary as it's been historically. And they're also missing quite a few guys too, so totally fine with SGA here. Chet, we hit with him on Monday. I'm not trying to chase that. I like Chet in super soft matchups. Going up against Bam, not my favorite spot for him. Price tag is fine, so I'm not saying like you can't play him. I'm just not today. And then the other Thunder players are always dart throws in this spot. Relatively just okay total. I'm not trying to force them in here. I think we might have much better plays from the Hawks today, ideally. All right, for the Heat, let's see. We have Kyle Lowry listed as doubtful. Caleb Martin is doubtful. Josh Richardson is doubtful. Jimmy Butler is out. These guys are missing quite a few players, like I said. Let's see. For Miami, no one's really standing out for me too much right now. But I do need to kind of dig into the numbers a little bit more with Josh Richardson being doubtful. When I was looking at things earlier, I didn't put Josh Richardson into account for that. So it wouldn't shock me if I do increase exposure to Tyler Hero, especially at 7,900 in a decent game environment. I like that. Bam, I keep going back and forth on. It will probably just depend on ownership. Jaime is more viable. I think he'll pop a bit more for me with Josh Richardson getting ruled out, but I'll have to look a little bit closer at that. Well, questionable, or doubtful. Yeah, Josh Richardson is doubtful. So with him more than likely not playing, I'm just not a Jaime guy. I don't really try to force exposure to him too often unless the spot just looks really good. I typically like Jaime a bit more when Jimmy and a Hero and Bam are out, just because Hero and Bam just control so much of the offense for the Heat. It's been a little hard for Jaime to get in there and have explosive games. So not an awful play by any means. I just think we'll have better $6,100 plays today. So right now, Hero's the main one standing out. I don't hate Bam here. So I'm just kind of going back and forth there. And no one else. The Rockets and Bulls are in the lowest game total on the slate because they both play at a super slow pace. I think when we've been playing Şengün, Fred VanVleet, Eason is already ruled out. Brooks has been out for a good bit now. You can make an argument for Fred VanVleet and Şengün in tournaments. I just don't think this is the spot with the Bulls healthy. I'm not trying to force exposure to these guys. I like playing them in soft matchups. Similar story with the Bulls. They are healthy. Zach LaVine is probable. Williams is probable. Caruso is probable. If everyone plays here, no one's standing out for me. I usually like taking shots on Vucevic, but again, it's not the type of matchup and or spot I want to take a shot on. The Pelicans are interesting only because we're waiting on news. So for the Pelicans, the only way I'm playing these guys tonight is if Zion Williamson misses this game. He's questionable currently. Jose Alvarado is questionable. And so we all know if Zion is out, that's a boost to Ingram and CJ. I would be willing to take a shot on both of them if Zion gets ruled out. Similar story of Joval. If Zion's ruled out, I will be significantly over the field on Valanciunas tonight. So I don't like the Pelicans right now just because we don't really know if Zion is playing. But if he gets ruled out, I like the spot a lot more. What's up, Daniel? Hope you're doing well, man. Odd Jack said, "Sup, Josiah? I feel like Shai's going to kill it tonight because nobody wants to play him against that Miami defense." Yeah, I mean, that's why SGA is typically relatively lower owned than he should be. And so it's been pretty easy to just get some decent leverage. I don't usually go too crazy with it. Like I don't have like 30% SGA just because he is usually pretty expensive. And if Murray's ruled out, I do think Trae Young's a better play. But I do like still having some exposure to SGA tonight if you're MMEing. Conley out. Whoo. We just get all the news some days. Who gets the boost? I'll look at it. He is probable. Yeah. Oh, Richardson's probable. I don't know. For me, on Underdog, it's saying he's doubtful. So, I just use the same tools, and whenever they change, then I update it. Gobert's questionable now, too. Oh, man. What are they doing over there? Look, they already took the total off. They're like, we don't know what the hell's happening here. Let's see. I mean, it's pretty easy. Like, if Gobert gets ruled out, that's a big boost to Cat. If Gobert and Conley gets ruled out, that makes Edwards and Towns way more viable. I would need to see the starting lineup to really know who they're going to force exposure to here, but it wouldn't shock me if we have a Nickeil Alexander-Walker chalk slate, which would be interesting for me. But I want to see the starting lineup and see what they do there, to be honest. That's what's going to move the needle the most for me. Could also be a Naz Reid night as well. So let's wait and see. First game on the slate, we'll have that news in time, so we really don't have to overthink it too much. And of course, on the pre-lock show, Brandon, if he's able to make it, and if he's not, I will we'll have a game plan for it. So I feel good about that. So like I said, Zion out. We play the Pelicans. If he plays, not playing him. We could have some really good value on the slate if news breaks the right way. The Warriors are a shit show. Starting lineup, Wiggins being in there. If he's not in there, then just in and out of the lineup, all these guys, starting lineups it's just a little crazy. I don't expect Wiggins to start today. I don't think anyone does after the last game. Curry should be extremely low owned tonight, but he just has not been that guy this season. So I don't plan on playing the Warriors. I'm just not doing it. Agreed. Oh, okay, so it's a recent update. Yeah, I don't always get the updates while I'm live, which is unfortunate, but I appreciate the help there. With Richardson, if he's playing, that does still make the Heat pretty boring of a play today. So yeah, guys, all in all, this could be an exciting slate, but per usual, just got to keep an eye on the news. We'll be live for the pre-lock show. That's for VIP members only at 5:30 p.m. Keep a close eye on the Discord. My guy Upper Slad, he keeps that updated with injury news and decent pivots there if you're not able to catch the pre-lock show. And I'll be back tomorrow with hopefully breaking down a really good slate today. And then tomorrow we'll have another good game plan to figure out what we're going to do on that slate. Dixon said Steph's career is done now that we all know he has a... Stop, Dixon. That was messed up of her, though, low-key. Like, how are you going to... Steph never says anything bad about her. Anyway, it is what it is. To be honest, neighbors, I'm not certain on how recent the tutorials are, but a lot of things haven't changed too much with the tutorials, so they should still be relevant. But if you have any specific questions, always happy to help. Yep. Yeah, crazy world out there. All right, y'all. I'll see you later. Peace out. Bye.